Buenos Aires. I wish I were there with you in person, but I'm there in spirit. And here are the ideas that I want to share today. If you've seen my TED Talk, then you'll have encountered this image. It's the donut, compass for the 21st century that aims to meet the needs of all people within the means of the planet. This is humanity's 21st century goal. But we are very, very far from achieving that right now. All the red in this picture shows you the extent to which we are overshooting our pressure on planetary boundaries, while millions, even billions of people fall short on the very essentials of life. This is the story we need to turn around. I've had fascinating conversations with companies over the past 5 years. Companies that say, what does the donut mean for us, for our business strategy? Be a company that is actually helping bring humanity into this space. And the response of different kinds of companies is what has fascinated me most. So I want to share with you what I call the corporate to-do list. What's a company going to do once it's encountered the donut? There are 5 responses on this to-do list, and I invite you to consider, honestly, where you think your company is today. So the first response is the oldest. Do nothing. The business of business is business, and everything we're doing is nearly legal, so we'll just keep carrying on until the costs exceed the price. There is no room for this very 20th century business attitude in the world today. And if you are at the Sustainable Brands Conference, I already know you've gone above this level. The next step up is incrementally better. We'll do what pays now. If it saves us money to cut our carbon emissions in our supply chains, then we'll cut our carbon emissions. If we can get a green certification and get access to niche consumer markets, then we'll do it. These are going in the right direction, but they're still driven by too short term of focus on markets and price and share. So we need to go a level up. And the next level up is to do your fair share. Companies that say, well, our national government has committed to do 20% carbon cuts by 2025, so we'll cut our carbon by 2025 by 20%. We'll do our fair share. The trouble with doing your fair share, as anybody knows who's been to a restaurant with friends and everybody chips in what they think is their fair share, it almost never adds up. So we need to go beyond this. If we get really serious, actually, about doing our fair share and follow the science, it turns out that to do our fair share is to do mission zero, to cut carbon emissions to zero within a few decades, to have zero child labor in your supply chains, to put zero pollution into Earth systems as you produce your products, to have zero serious injuries and accidents at work. Mission Zero is a truly transformative mission because business has never been done like this before. But as the regenerative designer Bill McDonough would say, why be 100% less bad when you can be good? When you can break through the ceiling of your imagination? And this is the 5th and final step on the corporate to-do list, which is simply to be generous. Now, I'm not talking about generosity in charity. I'm talking about running a company that generates so many benefits that you can give some away, that you can give back to the living earth. You can give back to the communities that you are surrounded by. You can share the benefits of business with people, with planet, so that we regenerate in a generous way the very systems on which our bodies and our planet depend. What would it take to be generous and generative in this way? I believe we need to put 2 principles at the heart of 21st century business design: to be distributive by design and to be regenerative by design. Let me take up the regenerative theme. Today, we have inherited industrial processes that are linear and degenerative by design. We take Earth's materials. We make them into things we want. We use them for a while and then we throw them away. And this take, make, use, lose is what's pushing us over the planetary boundaries. We need to bend those arrows around because this is what it looks like when we take again and again from Earth's sources. And this is what it looks like when we spew our waste again and again into Earth's sinks, plastics into lakes and rivers, electronic waste into the neighborhoods of the world's poorest people. Our children and our grandchildren will ask us, did you know about this? Did this really happen? Because they will see it for what it is. It's a disgusting way that we have come to do industry and practice business. And so we need to bend these arrows around and create an economy that is cyclical or circular, never using resources up, but using them again and again, far more slowly, more carefully, more smartly, more collectively. What about being distributive by design? Business can be distributive by sharing the value created far more equitably with all who co-created. From employee ownership, where the returns and the profits from business go not to distant shareholders, but to those who did the work and the employees themselves. The idea of fair chain, this coffee farmer in Ethiopia. We all know that coffee farmers get a tiny fraction of the value of the coffee that they produce. So one coffee company, Moyo Coffee, has started to build roasteries in Ethiopia, in the source country, to ensure that more of the value of that chain is captured at source. To me, that is a really interesting idea of distributive business design. We can empower communities owning their own capacity to generate energy, and businesses that support communities in owning the capacity to generate energy are distributing the value that they create far more equitably. And then this, I know it looks like a rock concert. It's actually a software developers conference for Drupal, an open source software company. All of these developers come together once a year. They write patches, they create new code, they upgrade the shared tool that they have created. So many major corporations would be hugely jealous of the size and passion of this research and development team. So there are many, many possible ways that business can be regenerative and distributive in their very design. But here's the real question. Why is it that some companies are at the bottom of the corporate to-do list, doing nothing, while others are already aiming to be generous and generative? And for me, this is the true story of the psychological transformation and drama that's happening in the redesign of business. Because we have inherited 20th century extractive enterprises that are designed and expected to ask one overriding question. How much financial value can we extract from this enterprise? You hear this question in the biographies of 20th century CEOs. We read it in the financial pages and business pages of the newspaper. But there are other companies, some of them in your crowd, who are asking a completely different question. How many benefits can we generate in the way we design this enterprise? Benefits for the living world, benefits for the community, for society, benefits for those who work for us, benefits for our customers. Of course, benefits for the company in terms of sufficient profit to open the doors again next week and next month and next year. But that's not what drives the business. It's this question of generating benefit. And most of the people I know who work in business and who have light dancing in their eyes are working in companies that ask this generative question. So what is it that divides the extractive from the generative? This is the really fascinating thing, because what matters the most about your company is not the design of your products. It's the design of your company itself. And I offer you 5 key design traits that I have learned from a brilliant corporate analyst called Marjorie Kelly. I invite you to take a good close look at each of these design traits in your company and ask yourself, is that design trait pulling us back into extractive mode or allowing us to move into the generative space? So first must be purpose. What is the purpose of your company? Why do you exist? What do you exist to serve in the world? 20th century companies were often driven by the purpose of maximizing shareholder value. But generative enterprises have a living purpose at the heart of what they do. What about how you're governed? Who's in the room when decisions get made, and whose voice has sway? What are the rules, the principles, the practices, and the culture that underpin your company? And what are the incentives that you give to your staff to try to get them to live out this governance in practice? Again, these designs will hugely influence whether your company is extractive or generative. How are you networked? How does your company relate to your customers, to your suppliers, to your competitors who may well turn out to be your best collaborators? Because if you can build an ecosystem of like-minded enterprise, you begin to live in the world that you want to bring into being. But now let's get down to the heavy stuff, the serious design traits that lie at the bottom of every company but really drive what it does. How are you owned? Because whether a company is owned by its employees, by a family, by venture capital, by shareholders, by private investors, these very different design traits will profoundly shape your company's relationship to the fifth and final design trait, how it's financed, and what that finance intends to do. Extractive enterprises are pulled by the finance that demands the highest, fastest rate of return, whereas generative enterprise is backed by finance which is a commitment to the future that you want to bring about, with a fair financial return, but committed to the social and environmental value that you are also bringing about. So I offer you these 5 design traits to look at your own company through this lens, because if you can transform the design of your enterprise, then transforming the design of your products, that's the easy part. And if you can start to move in that direction, your company will be just the kind of company that starts to help bring humanity into the donut. I hope these ideas land well. Enjoy reflecting deeply on what they may offer you as transformation.